Alright, so we've gotten everything back to where I was before I messed up. The new trailing edge is installed with the correct double-sided tape. Now what I have to do is correct my other mistake, and that is on the trailing horn brace. As you may be able to see in here, these are blind rivets that hold the two halves of the bottom rib together. And in the process of putting the brace in, I actually did it out of step, and I now have a couple holes that were not filled with blind rivets. So I got to figure out a way to remove this, pull it out, or at least get it out of the way enough that I can then put the blind rivets in and correct the mistake I made. So that's what I'll be working on today, to try to get that corrected. I've got all the Clincos holding the trailing edge together, letting the double-sided tape set. But the big project is going to be the double-sided, or the brace, trying to correct my mistake there.
All right, and with that, I want to welcome everyone back. Finishing up the rudder here. As I just got done discussing, last correction to make is fixing the 4 holes that I missed where blind rivets need to go on the bottom rib there. So the whole process here is just removing the rivets. There's, I believe, 4 on either side of the front and aft end of the bottom of the brace, and then I think there's 4 on either side where it's attached to the skin for the brace. And so you got to remove all these rivets with the process I just talked about, making sure that you're careful not to oversize those holes. That's the big important thing to worry about while you're doing this. So going through this, this is a big pain in the butt. This is about an hour and a half, almost 2 hours worth of work that I've edited down as much as I could. And I probably could have even removed some more just repetitious stuff. But I'm trying to, like I said before, trying to keep these videos as true to form as possible. Only editing out little bits. I know most folks don't watch more than just a couple minutes of these videos, but for those who are curious about a particular step, I try to leave as much in the videos as I can. This video, you'll notice that I was finally able to get the second camera working. I'm not a big fan of it. I probably should have bought the same model as what I'm using in this shot here. Here's the other angle. But the big difference that I've found so far is that the angle that I use primarily, looking out towards the garage door, that camera has a continuous record function to it, and basically takes 15-minute recordings, and then takes a second or two and starts recording another 15-minute segment. And I can just plug it in and just set it to record and let it go. This camera seems to be very much like a GoPro in that it's got a short battery life. I got to find a way of getting a power cord out to it. But it also seems that with a power connection applied to it, it does not go into a record function. So we'll have to figure it out. And I might just go ahead and buy a second camera like the first. But anyway, I thought this might give the videos a little bit more usefulness to kind of see it from multiple angles, and make it not quite so boring, I guess. Eventually, I have a couple tripods that are in my storage unit that I'll get out and try to get closer shots, move around to where you can see what I'm actually doing instead of just looking over my shoulder like this. So anyway, going through, it's a bit of work getting this out and a lot of just elbow grease, really, especially when I finally get all of the rivets freed and trying to pull the brace itself out. It's just wedged in there, and it's a pain in the butt. So like I said before, if you get to this step, make sure that you do the steps in order. Do the blind rivets first and then put the brace in. It's a pain in the butt otherwise.
All right, so as you can see, I got the brace out. It's not the easiest process. I'm hoping that I can get back in. It was a pain in the ass to get out, to be honest. There's a couple rivets here that are holding on these bottom brackets that are just in the way to try to wedge it in, or to pull it out in this case. I'm hoping that I'll be able to wedge it back in. But anyway, these are the holes that I missed. You can see the blind rivets here extending all the way down. I gotta get these blind rivets here before I can put the brace in and then re-rivet in place. But the general process for pulling rivets out is you take a drill, and each rivet has a small little dimple in the middle of the head that you line up with a drill bit, and just drill enough to break the head off. Once you get the head to come off, then you can either use a punch or something toward that effect to lightly force the stud of the rivet out. You don't want to use too much force, obviously, because you'll bend the material, but you just get it enough to where you get the head off, and then you can either use a punch to try to punch the rest of the way through, or you can even use the punch on the machine head of the rivet to try to force it off. And in some cases, you can just get a pair of pliers and pull the machine head off from the backside of the rivet. So that's the process you go through to remove the rivets. Be careful when you're doing it, obviously, because you can enlarge the hole, and that's not what you want. They do make what I've heard referred as oops rivets. For instance, these are size 3 rivets. The oops rivet would be if you enlarging the hole by accident, you would make it then a size 4 shaft, but it's got a size 3 head to it. So it still fit in these dimples, but it'd just be a larger diameter hole with the 4 instead of the 3. Obviously, try not to do that for obvious reasons, but it is an option if you find yourself that you've enlarged the hole too much and the 3 just won't work. So anyway, I'm going to go and try to put the rivets, the blind rivets, where I should have put them to begin with, and then see if I can force the brace back in and get it riveted back in place. After that, we'll finish off with the trailing edge. It's a pretty critical step. I think the instructions say you have basically a millimeter of deviation, basically as far as the wave of the trailing edge goes. So it's very important to do your best to make sure that it's straight. Some people have gone as far as buying some either angled steel or angled aluminum, and cleat coat, drilled holes in the angle, and cleat coat the trailing edge to the angle iron, angle piece to help keep it straight. I'm going to try and see what happens without doing that. It may be that I end up removing a lot of rivets and going to get an angled piece of aluminum, but we'll see how it goes.
And so from here, the video is going to be mostly just putting this brace back in. First, put in the 4 blind rivets using a pop rivet gun, and the holes didn't quite match up, so I had to drill them out just to match drill them basically, and then that's what I'm doing here, and then I put the pop rivets in. So all of this, like I said, probably took me about 2 hours to actually get this portion done. And It's mostly just because it was not easy getting the brace in and out. So from here, get these blind rivets put in, and then put the brace back into place, and then rivet it back with the appropriate rivets. Excuse me. So once everything was said and done, the rudder itself turned out really well, I think. The only step I have after this, other than to rivet the trailing edge, is to bend the forward end, the skins there that are overhanging, and bend those to the correct angle, and then rivet those together. That was a bit of a fight going with, trying to get that the forward end bent correctly and shaped. I'm probably going to end up having to redo it. There's templates that are in the instructions that I need to cut out and then make templates out of some kind of a board or something stiff, and make sure that those are formed correctly. I didn't really do that when I formed it. I just kind of eyeballed it, and I have a feeling that the clearance is going to be tight enough between the rudder and the vertical stabilizer aft end that I want to make sure that those are shaped correctly. So I'll probably end up redoing that. I didn't do it very well as far as my own standards go. So that's the biggest thing that's left from where I'm at in the video here, is shaping that forward end. So other than that, the vertical stabilizer is complete for the most part. I've got to get the fairings that on the top end installed at some point, and then the rudder will be complete here, and get the fairing put on to the rudder itself, also on the top end. And then the only thing I have after that is what I'm working on now is a horizontal stabilizer. And then the elevator pieces, and then from there it'll be pretty much just start working on the tail cone itself. So like I said, I think that I will be able to complete this in a matter of a few months. I had initially planned to go through the end of the year with it, but I think the progress I've been able to make on it so far, pretty indicative that I should be able to finish this fairly soon. The next kit I want to say is about $7,500, and that's for the wings. I'm kind of waiting to see where my career takes me at the moment before I get too far ahead of myself. I have an opportunity to either go into a different department where I'm at now, or somewhere else, and so I'm kind of waiting to see where I settle out before I get too involved and have to move a whole bunch of stuff. So I should know within the next month or so, and then go from there. And then it'll just be a matter of putting money aside for the next kit, and then get that worked out. So between paying things off and setting money aside for the next kit, and trying to get my Piper Cherokee ready to go, it's going to be a busy season here. So anyway, well, I'm going to let this video trail out here. It's got another minute or two of just finishing up. And again, for those that continue to follow these videos, I appreciate it. And if you get a chance, click that like button. And if you haven't already, subscribe, and you'll see when my next videos are coming out. I'll see you in the next video.